Welcome to an overview of Virginia's Person-Centered ISP version 4.0. This video is designed to provide an early look into the upcoming improvements to Virginia's Person-Centered ISP. So today we're going to cover the project background, talk about the integration of the risk awareness tool into the 5 parts of the ISP, and then provide a project overview and timeline of upcoming activities. So we'll start with the background. And there are different events that led to ISP revisions, and these events occurred between 2018 and 2023. In 2018, the Partnership for People with Disabilities and the School of Social Work at VCU completed a study on support coordination that emphasized the need to reduce paperwork and redundancy in IT systems such as WAMs. So while turnover at the time was 28.2%, it was as high as 75% at some CSBs. And then in 2022, the Case Management Steering Committee at DBHDS began a quality improvement initiative to improve SC retention. This initiative included SC focus groups, and we learned that SCs wanted less paperwork and less redundancy, but they also expressed difficulty with implementing the risk awareness tool. Also in 2022, the DBHDS Office of Data Quality and Visualization at the time produced an actionable recommendation that, where possible, external data elements should be integrated into the ISP. And then finally, in 2023, the DBHDS Key Performance Area Work Groups identified that performance was found to be well below target in 2 key areas of the Quality Service Reviews, or QSRs. These 2 areas related to ISP assessment and implementation. So the QII was initiated to address these concerns with performance and also address concerns from CSBs with improving the ISP process. So overall, what we've learned is that turnover is high, paperwork is overwhelming, technology has redundancies, external forms should be integrated, the RAT can be difficult to use, and often support needs can be lost in the process of transferring information across different parts of the ISP. And then quality service review results were low for those 2 areas that I mentioned earlier, ISP assessment and planning. Next, we'll review the integration of the risk awareness tool into the ISP. So we'll start with the concept. This flowchart provides a review of updates made for version 4.0. So there were very minor edits in parts 1 and 2, but updates to these parts largely focused on removing content that will not apply given the new ISP structure. Part 3 is actually where the RAT content is incorporated, and when risks are known to be true, they are checked and then transferred to all Part 5s to be addressed by providers. Risks that are identified as potential risks will also be listed in the Part 4 in a printable format before transferring to the Part 5s. Essential support changes occur on-site and are documented through Part 5 revisions by each provider and service. Changes need to be communicated to the support coordinator, who can ensure all relevant team members are notified. The first step in incorporating the RAT elements is to redefine how we think about outcomes. Outcomes will continue to be part of shared planning, but will only focus on what's important to the person and where they want to go in life. We no longer have outcomes for important 4 support needs that include health risks, behavioral supports, or routine supports, unless there is an aspect of the need that matters to the person. For example, a person who needs support with dressing might want to learn how to coordinate outfits better, or someone who takes multiple medications might want to learn the names and purpose of their medications. In these examples, outcomes could be developed for coordinating outfits and learning medications, but otherwise would be included in the plan under a new section called Essential Supports. So essential supports include 3 areas: identified risks, things that have a medical diagnosis or are known to be true at the time of annual planning. Then there are potential risks, and these are not known to be true, but secondary questions within the ISP will determine whether or not those things are potential risks for the person, and providers are expected to mitigate this within their scope of practice. And then finally, routine supports, things like bathing, dressing, things that are really important for the person or may relate to chronic health conditions are also included in this process and will transfer directly to the Part 5. This is a universal listing of essential supports, so note that the left side column lists risks that could be identified or potential. If they are identified or known to be true, at the time of the annual they are checked and transferred to the Part 5s. Those risks that are not checked initially are subject to secondary questions to determine if they are potential risks. So the two columns to the right are comprised of all routine supports. Note that there are three other categories for routine, medical, and behavioral if those are needed. So there are no secondary questions for routine supports. Once indicated, they transfer directly to the Part 5. There are key differences between identified and potential risks. As defined earlier, identified risks are known at the time of annual planning, and following team discussion, the selection in the ISP is all that is needed to push them forward to the Part 5. Potential risks, which are not known to be true, require additional questions to determine if they are potential risks. So all providers will be responsible for selecting the frequency supports will be provided and instructions for staff on how to deliver supports in a person-centered way. Similar to identified risks, routine supports known to be true at the time of annual planning are listed in the Part 3 as routine supports, and they are directly transferred to the Part 5. So routine supports are actually unique to each service, and they are selected at the time of Part 5 development. So they may be different depending on the service and the setting. This is an example of a person who did not have bowel obstruction identified at the point of annual planning. So notice that through additional questions, the team identified that the person refuses to drink beverages and requires assistance to eat. These two factors indicate a potential risk, and once selected, the risk of bowel obstruction will be included in the plan. So next, here's an example of the format in Part 3. There will be a secondary section or a secondary menu in WAMS which contains essential supports. Comprised of those are identified risks, potential risks, and routine supports. When annual planning is finished, you may see something like this reflected in the Part 3 shared planning. Identified risks will be listed, potential risks will be listed, and routine supports will be listed. You'll notice that they all have the same start and end date, which are the effective and end date of the current ISP year. These are static. They do not change in the ISP. They are actually documented on site when support needs change. So next we're going to move on to how referral decisions are documented in the Part 4 agreements. So when potential risks are identified, they will populate a new section in the Part 4. They will be provided here with a standard statement for the qualified health professional so that that professional understands how they were identified and if a referral is preferred by the individual. This listing can be printed and taken to the appointment for further discussion, assessment, and/or referral. Here's an example of the language that will be included in the ISP for the qualified healthcare professional. There are two additional questions included in the Part 4. One is related to the person needing therapeutic behavioral consultation waiver services, and one related to nursing waiver services. You'll notice that there are multiple options, and SCs should think carefully about what they choose. Only the first option, which is yes, referral to be completed within 30 days of ISP, requires additional entry. And the additional entry for both questions would be who will complete the referral for these services. Otherwise, the person needs the services and is on a waiting list. The person needs the service and is already connected. The person needs the service, but the individual in SC declined the referral. And then no, they don't need the service because they have other supports. And no, they don't require the services. Finally, update to the Part 4 includes the option for any team member to express an objection to any of the essential supports identified in the planning process. The team should revisit the concern and attempt to resolve it, and when resolution is not possible, there will be space in the ISP to document the outcome of those discussions. In the Part 5, providers respond to all items to confirm the frequency that support is provided with identified risks, and potential risks. How to support is also included but is optional for providers using the modified use method. Frequency will be a required field in the system. Providers doing modified use can continue to upload their provider formatted Part 5 as an attachment within WAMS. The target date for all essential supports is the end date of the current ISP year, but can be ended early by each provider in the Part 5. The frequency options are provided in the upper right, here in yellow. Remember that all providers must address all risks, and routine supports can be selected based on the service and setting. Providers add essential supports throughout the year in a Part 5 revision whenever medical orders change or needs change. Changes after the annual are not updated in WAMS but are documented on site in each service and setting. So communication with the support coordinator and others as needed is required to ensure consistency across services and settings. Part 5 will include a confirmation that the provider has thoughtfully considered all the routine supports and selected those which are needed in the Part 5 and service setting. Finally, we'll talk about timelines. So you'll notice the concept was drafted in October of 2023 in cooperation with the Provider Issues Resolution Work Group, Subcommittee Administrative Burden. Then in November 23, we met with FEI, the WAMS vendor. We held discussions with the Department of Medical Assistance Services, the Office of Licensing, and the Office of Human Rights. In November 23, we met with the WAMS EHR vendor group again to discuss the specifications. The specifications are nearly final. Once they are final, they'll be provided to the EHR vendor group so that they can begin the development of their systems. The next phase of development is system build-out, then developing training, and then once screenshots are available in the test environment, we will begin to hold trainings. Watch the listserv for announcements for these trainings, which should occur between May and July. And then finally, testing occurs in the WAMS UAT system about 6 weeks prior to launch. We anticipate the launch date of the new ISP to be July or August 1st of 2024. Thank you for your time today. Many questions will be answered during the upcoming trainings, and we will provide a recording of the training and a question and answers document at that time.